fireplace or that chimney in there, and it reminds me of, remember Roscoe's? Is this being taped?
Yeah.
They came up here to look at something up here, and there was just that plate over the top of the floor chimneys, and she went right through it. One leg all the way right up to her.
It was Mrs. Rajka?
Yeah.
And John?
And we were downstairs because they kept up and heard this crash and everything, came running in, and here that one leg was hanging out through the ceiling.
So, who did this?
Grandfather. Or Dad, I mean.
See, Dad was a real historian, wasn't he?
Yep. He wrote a book. I don't know if you've ever seen that little. And we're still having orders for that. People want them, but it costs a fortune to have them redone again. Are you taping?
Oh, yeah.
The Victoria Post was operated by the Hudson Bay Company from 1864 to 1883, see?
Ah, okay.
Then closed for 5 years when it was brought by John A. Mitchell. He operated it until it was bought in 1921 by Mrs. Lawford. She operated it until the CN was built through Smoke Lake. CN came through in 22 this way. Post office was opened in 1887, getting the mail from Fort Saskatchewan via the Victoria Trail. Later the route was changed and mail was brought from Lamont to Andrew, then on to Pakan. Finally the route was changed to Smoke Lake and the mail hauled by me, Frank Mitchell, for 36 years.
Good Lord.
The Pakan office was distributing point for Pine Creek, North Bank, Smoke Lake, Edwin, and Westeo. The mail from Pine Creek was first hauled by Isaac Bibby, who used a team of oxen.
What was it like here when you were a kid? Was there still, some of the buildings were still here?
Oh yeah, I remember the hotel, telegraph office, and a few buildings. Tom Rogers used to live just down here a little ways. And then we had a big building across the road here, what we had for our, we used to clean grain and everything in it. And my grandfather said the only way, because this was solid bush at one time, the only way, when he first came in here, the only way you could get in here from the top of the hill over there was a trail through the bush by saddle horse. You know, this country was all solid bush. Ernie Mr. Parham, Hoss Parham, what lives 3-4 miles west or 5 miles west from here,
Yeah.
told me that he could walk on log up to log, practically from his place to Pakan, because he used to come here from Ale. That's how heavy that bush was. And the one that, you know, the trees blew over, that's how big it was. And I believe that. I'm sure you wouldn't say that just to... Yeah.
There's a few rules about coming in the house. And you can come in here, but there's some
Yeah,
rules about coming into the
there was
house.
a flour mill
A
here.
lot of the things in the house
That
are
was just
legal.
all of
We'll stop for now.
So you can't come in.
Jeez.
Instructions in the-
You don't want to see me limping like that. Well, you see those markings right there?
Yeah.
That's where the Hudson Bay trading post was, the old warehouse. Great big long building, it was all with tin all over everything, covered with tin, and then the post office is right here in the corner.
Okay. Well, do you remember these buildings being there?
Oh yeah, sure. I remember the old building because you can see I think this might be it right here, but I can't see that being this far out. The post office was right here on the corner of this road. And Hudson Bay, that old post, then the storage, I say it's this one here, but this may be, but I can't see it being this far out. Because there was, grandfather had from the fort here, he had a walk out that comes out here, and then a boardwalk out to the post office. And I can remember this big building, big long building. But they see there's 1, 2, 3 different sites here. This here might have been the old store was right here. The store belonged to Roscoe.
Yeah.
Bill Shopka first had it, then Roscoe. And they sold it. Marshall Colony was going to move it, and he couldn't move it. So they buried it. That's why you see it caved in here. They just bulldozed it with a cat and covered it up in its own basement. So I can't see where this, see you're standing on one right here.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, I don't know why there was 4 of them here, but see, they should have had these marked, printed. Couldn't they do that? See, there's nothing in any of these. All you have to do is burn a marking in there. That would last. Yeah. Other than painting a sign or putting in your books, the history books in there, someplace where they have this, where these are, what buildings these are.
Yeah.
Just the same as those stockades there. Never got any farther than that. They never will.
No.
I always suggested that why can't you build those things right around the whole block? I think this is what their plans were at the time. All the way around. Then you could have it locked up and nobody could come in here for the summer or winter or whenever, when it's abandoned.
Yeah.
Wouldn't cost you anything to have it. Insurance or anything. And if you want, it would take a lot of pulls, but if I wanted to have, say, all this one wall, or half of this one wall, from my family, I'd have all their names printed on those rails, posts, whatever they were. Mm-hmm. And you could have the same thing, or anybody in the whole area wanted to have those things done, they could do that. But I suggested that, and nothing ever come of it.
So when your dad built a museum, that was when?
He didn't build a museum. That building there, the old museum building, comes from way up there by where the RCMP cairn is now. And Ben Sinclair used to live just across the corner there. And Dad and Ben were great friends. So Ben gave that building to Dad. And we tore it down, numbered all the logs, and then rebuilt it here for his museum. And then when this store was being operated on, then they had the store, after the store was closed, they had a bunch of inmates here from Fort Saskatchewan. And I think maybe that's how come that people got to know that was a museum, because artifacts were pretty scarce at that time. Dad and Mr. Bill Anyuk used to travel all over the country, and they used to pick these up and get them wherever they could. That's how he made that big, great collection. So then when that was broken into, we gave that stuff to the Smoke Lake Museum, which is still operating. And then Ben Sinclair died. I don't know if I ever seen him. But one day I was home, and my son was home with me there, and he comes in, and this guy comes in and he says, "I'm Ben Sinclair." And I says, "Like hell you are, Ben Sinclair died." I never knew that he had a son by the name of the same thing, but that was his father that owned the building. And he wanted to see the building, and he wanted me to, if he could get it back to the same place it came from, original. And I didn't think anything of it, but just a spur of the moment like that and everything. But I know I found out later just exactly how that happened. Because the home guard is the one that put him to this.
Oh.
To get that building back to the original. Because I know damn well enough, because when he came to see me, then I wrote him a letter. No, I had a letter from him. The blank, if I would at least give him back this old building. And I know well enough it wasn't him, it was the letterhead was from the Home Guard, because I belonged to the Home Guard, and the letterhead was the same as they send out these newsletters. And I knew it was them. So I wrote to him, and I still got the copy of the letter and everything, that there was no way that I'm going to give that building back to him, because you're not even living there and it's not your land anymore. Why would you want to put it back onto that property you don't belong to? And I says, don't let some society or some lead you astray, because I know what went wrong. I'm sure it was, and I never heard from him since. No, I know. You know where the RCMP thing is, way up there, over there?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, he was just on the buildings came just across the road there.
Oh, across the road from it. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
And that land belongs to Sadaway boys,
Oh, okay.
and they belong to the Home Guard.
Right, right.
Anyway,
It doesn't matter.
he didn't get it.
So,
But I wanted to give that building here to the Friendship Society, because seeing that I didn't want to give it back to them, I mentioned it here at one of our meetings, and the lady in charge said that there's no way that they could do it. We never even discussed it. Never even gave the board a time to discuss it or anything. She said it's not original. So I dropped it. Never mentioned it again. That's why I say I've been on here for so many years, and I get so disgusted trying to help them out to do things like this, and when I wanted to donate that to them, no way. Never did find out the reason why, other than she says it's not original. So, anyway.
so what do you remember? Do you remember the, down here, they had stuff by the river itself?
The flour mill was just over the hill here.
Just over the hill?
Yeah.
Where? So, around there?
Just right over the... See the bend in the road goes down here by the ferry? Right,
Yeah.
just here? Well, it's just right over the hill there. I don't remember the flour mill itself. We have pictures of it, but I remember the boiler was there. Everything was taken down but the boiler.
Yeah.
You know, somebody bought it for scrap metal after. That's all I can remember is that the boiler was standing there for years.
What is that, the lumber mill too?
Flour mill.
Okay.
Flour mill, the lumber mill was just west, just below our place. Because from our house to the road right over here where you ended those spruce trees, they just kept that open for us to drive through. There was logs piled from way back over here, like for that fuel tank you can see there. That's where, from there all the way right to the bottom of the river, flat there. Solid logs. The flour mill was on that.
And that was in the 20s.
Well, I guess it would have to be the 20s and 30s. No, it would be, yeah. Because I was born in 22 and I can remember that, the mill there and everything.
Okay.
Sawdust pile, big sawdust pile was there and everything. But they just left us a driveway.
Whose land was the mill on?
Ours. Dad's.
Whose mill was it?
Probably says in here,
Oh, okay.
someplace. 1870, flour mill was built. No, that must have been not.
That'd be up the hill, that one.
That must be another one.
That'd be the one way up the hill there? Up that way?
North, east of Pakan, that must have been up that Mill Creek, that must have been the one that was run by Potter. They were always going to build a boardwalk from the river up there, never did. That's a gas was built in 1880, and it's still burning today.
Yeah.
Some people, some people around here that would be opposing that all the time. Pollution into the air, and it's still going.
Mm. Do you remember the skating parties they had out there?
Yeah, well, we used
By
to.
the well itself.
Yeah, we used to. Well, everybody used to just scrape the ice off and skate. And just the banks pushed up like that and everything. And we used to have sleigh rides. See, because the road on that side of the river, that road from the ferry road up there, was a big winding road up there and everything. And on the weekends, I bet you there was 100 people there or more, with every little sleigh that they could have, bobsleighs and little hand sleighs, because I remember bobsleighs that they had where they had these big long bobsleighs where one guy would lay down and steer it, and about 15 guys in the back. Then I had my little regular sleigh,
Yeah.
and I was coming down that hill, and I remember they were hollering to get out of the road and everything, and I hit the snowbank. I don't know how old I was, but every weekend there'd be hundreds of people over there. Everything they could imagine, bring down that they could slide with. And I always said that right here, they were thinking of what they could do to have all year's entertainment. They could use those hills over there and snowplow them and ice them up or something all the way down from there, right down to the river, go down that hill there and everything. Never did. I don't know.
Let's walk around the far side here. See what buildings you remember.
Down in front?
Yeah.
She had a garden all the way out here, just beautiful, and just a little walk in between everything. And that whole building was just covered with Virginia creepers right over the top of that window, just a little hole in there to see through the windows and everything. It was just, we have pictures of it, I think. But that was something that unbelievable. And then that's why such a sudden change. You can't have those days, and this was the original, like. And if they could have kept this the way, I tell you, people would have something to draw people. But there isn't enough people interested in just to look at that building, to think that that's the oldest building in Alberta. People are, I don't know, they can't see that. This was all right way out to these trees. And then right in front of that, our concession booth there, just the other side of it was the hotel.
It was that close.
Yeah. Because we used to play in that. I can remember that. Because it had a veranda and upstairs and a veranda up above there. We used to play in that thing till I guess it was getting a little too old and too dangerous. But it was sold and Hamanook. I forget what his first name is now. He bought it, and he just lives used to live just across off the bridge. And he bought it, tore it down, and built a home over there for himself.
Using the parts? Using the parts?
Yep.
Is it still there, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Because I go over there every once in a while, and I was always going to stop there and see, but I don't know who the people are there now. He passed away quite a few years ago and everything.
Well, when you played with it, it was not a hotel at that stage.
Well, it wasn't used. It was an old hotel, old building. That was all,
Yeah.
abandoned. Because that's once the railroad went through, everything went out of here, except that some of the buildings. Telegraph office was tore down, and Tom Rogers' house. I don't know. Somebody tore them down or something. I don't know just what happened to them. And then when the government started building up this place, that great big mound there, that's just a pile of scrap underneath there. Rocks, logs, concrete that was under some of the buildings there, and they cleaned up the place and they put them there and then covered them up with that dirt. And they tried to, one time at one of our meetings, they wanted to move that dirt, but it was going to cost them too much money. And I said, it won't cost you anything, because we had a heck of a rainstorm here the one time that I have 2 washouts in the field there on the side hill there. I owned that land, and it was deep, and I says, all you have to do is hire somebody to load that. It won't cost you anything to fill up those washouts there. Clean it up. No way. They couldn't do a thing about it. That's another reason why I give up with this thing. Can't do anything about it. That thing is staying there. It's now when the government came in to put gas lights across there, they have to run over that thing. It's a nuisance, but they have to put up with it. Yep. Well, that is about as best I can tell you.
That's good.
And down here to the ferry, for instance, is another thing too, that road to the ferry is grown into the carragana is so thick, you can, your aerial wraps around them. And I suggested cleaning that thing off. Get a cat in here or the county and just push the one side off, the south side, over, because it's on just a bank there. Push it over. No way you could do that. I don't want to tell the name of the lady. She says you can't touch that because might be artifacts in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's artifacts all over the whole place here. When we were trying to develop this thing, Karen Doyle was in charge of that. And I says, get the archaeologists in here and dig them out, but we can't. There's not enough of them to do it. They did a little bit when they were that piece of land right here. Mm-hmm. They dug that out, covered it up with plastic and everything, where these cairn was and everything. And that's the way it goes. So this will last another 100 years or another 81 years, and it will never be done.
No.
Just unbelievable. That riverboat that went down the river here, the big raft with all those guys, there's no boat launching. They came from Edmonton going down to Heinsberg or someplace way east there. Mm-hmm. There's no launching pads any place on the river. And they said this would be a good place to have one here. And I suggested that too when we opened up this river road here. Mm-hmm. Build one there, but I can't do anything myself. That's why if we get Broda in, we're going to give him the works. But then he's a government man too, you know, and this is what I say is we're held up so much of government rules and regulations that it's just terrible. Just the same as when that stage was condemned. How did they know that we didn't put a few dollars back into it to bring it up to par? Does somebody come out and inspect it? I'm on the museum board in Smoker Lake. And the same thing there, we built that ramp, mm-hmm. wheelchair ramp. Did anybody ever come and check that thing out? Not that I know of. And there's the specs are that the bars are supposed to be so many inches apart because any kid or something get their head in there. I suggested when the railroad went out, buy 2 railroad ties, rails, mm-hmm. and from there build them, and then weld rods in between. Oh no, you can't do that. But that wasn't the government. That was our own, some of our own board.
Yeah.
That would be a memory of the railroad, which mm-hmm. in a museum, which I thought would be ideal, but no way. So things like this, I don't know, I talk through my head maybe, or I don't know, I give up on it.
Yeah, you win some, you lose some, that's all.
But I have nobody to back me up on these things. To say, let's go ahead with it. Terrible.
Well, Geiger's thing has worked, that building there.
Well, but you see, that's the way these things came in. That's why they broke away, and that's why that RCMP Karen is way up there as it is. Geiger was down here. Now you'll have to take these names in order because I don't. Geiger was down there, and Pauline Fignac. Used to try to run for mayor in Smoky.
Pete Group.
Peter Grook and all them. Because I was president of this thing so many times, and then I gave up and tried to get somebody else to take over, and I couldn't do it. Every time I got somebody in here, I had George Topinitsky here, the mayor of Andrew, Stewart, and Minister of Agriculture, Stelmach, and everything. Carson McDonald from the Ukrainian village, or from the tree nursery. Every time they had, Pauline Fignac just tore him apart. And he dropped everything. They all did this. Is why. That's why they went up there with that RCMP. I was on that board. We had meetings in Fort Saskatchewan. We had meetings here at Smoke Lake with the RCMP. And when they picked that site, after I went and asked the police in here in Smoky, he didn't want to say anything, but he kind of laughed and he says, "We didn't have a say in that thing at all." Now this should be taped out, cut out if you're taping it, but this is why I say I was involved in all those things, but nothing. It's just terrible. Everybody says there's no reason why that thing is up there. It should be here. Mm-hmm. Why shouldn't it have been here? The interpreters that were here at the time that went through internet and found out that this was the first place the RCMP stopped, which was just natural because this was a fort way before that. Mm-hmm. Now, why couldn't have that thing? But it's not what you know, who you know to get that thing.
You know, strangely enough, your whole life here is part of the sort of the history of the site that didn't work. Like this is a ghost town.
Yeah.
Like it's not a site, but the whole town. You must have been frustrated all your life seeing everything here disappearing.
Yeah. Well, I could see it because it's all over the whole place. Once the railroad went through, everything went to the railroad. So, but I can't see the railroad could have been down here. I don't know.
They had a rule or something that it couldn't be 20 miles from each other or something like that. And the Andrew Railway was there.
There has to be something why it went there and everything.
Yeah.
And then the cost of having a railroad right down here and all that. I don't know. It only bothers me to think that people have no interest in the oldest spot in Alberta. It's hard to believe. I tell people this, that just to think, the size of Edmonton, and this building's one of the oldest buildings in Edmonton. I can't believe it myself. But there is one building older, but they don't call it because it's been off. This was just jacked up and put the foundation down. The other one that's older was moved off of the site, reestablished elsewhere.
Do you think that, like, why did this place disappear?
Well, it disappeared because of the railroad. It came through and everything went there. And then there was nothing left here. Who in the hell wants to start up at that time? Now, maybe.
I guess no roads really to it.
Well, the roads at that time, and compared to today, sure. Because I remember Dad used to haul mail to Smoke Lake, and that road right up here never went right to the top of the hill. It went down halfway down that hill, and then up. And I remember it was drifting like terrible one time, so I just went up on the top of the hill there to see on saddle horse, and the horse fell through the drift, and I just sat there like that with like I was sitting on a chair. That's how deep that bank, and I got off and he got out. And they never opened that road till with a drilling outfit was moving from the north to south side over here someplace, and they opened it up with a cat, just wide enough to width of a cat. And I have a picture of it, that I had a Dodge truck, and I had a dog sitting on that snowbank. He was that high above the roof of my cab. That's how bad that drifts were. Years ago, it was like that. But now today, the roads, the county builds all those roads up. There's no such a thing as drifting that bad and everything. That's why the big change was too. Not only here, it's all over. Because even right from that, where that driveway in right over there, up the hill to where that big sign is, there was a Cockshed agency and a Massey Harris agency. Machine agencies here too.
Mm.
I don't remember those buildings, but we have the pictures of them.
Was it like empty when you were a kid here?
Well, there was a few buildings around, like the old telegraph's office was still here, and the hotel, and a few little residences in here. But then once they tore apart, where they went to and who bought them, I don't know, except that hotel, I know. And then after that, then the government took over and I know the girls that did this. The government spent $1 million on this project. And Lonnie Schulke and what's the name of the girl that traded land with Hominukes? Polemark.
Yeah, right.
They worked at the tree nursery.
Yep.
They're the ones that came out here and drew up this plan, the walks and everything like this, and the trees and everything. And cost the government put $1 million into this thing. And then after they do that, somebody's got to be in charge of it. They're not going to do it themselves. So this is why the Friendship Society was formed. Naturally, somebody had to take over. So the Friendship Society, and that's been on for years, and that's why there was friction amongst us and them and everything. The wagon trains used to come through here. Then they abandoned that because of that foot and mouth disease. And then another one. Pauline argued with Marge Robinson at every meeting. We had a meeting right here on the residence. I remember that there on that night. Marge was conducting the meeting, and Pauline sitting right there, and Marge said something, and Pauline jumped her about it, and Marge got mad. Marge gets mad awfully fast. She just jumped up and grabbed her books and slapped them on the table, and she says, "That's enough. I can't take any more of this from this lady." And out the door she went. And my relative there, Monica, that bought that place up there by Sandra, she was in charge of the gift shop. They jumped her about some damn thing. She came out here on her own expense, went to Lac La Biche to gather up all these stuff and told them where it was supposed to come from. She brought that stuff down here to our place, left it with us till the do was opened. She quit because they bawled the hell out of her for some. It was just unbelievable.
Yep.
Mr. What's his name that had his reunion here?
House, yeah.
Hausen, what's the other guy? He used
Livingston.
To be Albert Livingston.
Yeah.
He was a smart man, I thought. The stuff that he took from this people here, that's why he quit. Had nothing to do with it. We had a meeting at the Legion. The meeting wasn't even called to order yet, and they started jumping him. Poor guy, I never felt so sorry for a person in my life. See, that's why I say these things have been going on and on and on and on and on, and it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Do you want this, or do you want to give this to your daughter? I've got.
Oh, is that
That's
History
that.
of the Pioneer District?
History of
It
Pakan.
is. Okay.
I got a whole bunch of these.
If I can take that, I'd like that.
I've got some more in the car there.
Okay.
I'll get you a whole bunch of them if you want to. But he's taping this, and I told him to don't publish that till I see it, because there's a lot of names in there I don't want put out.
He will edit it wonderfully, and what we're most concerned about is not as much what's happening here with the site now, but about your father's time here and your grandfather. I heard your grandfather used to sit in the front. Was it your father or grandfather who sat in a rocking chair in the front window?
Grandfather, he had a big long
Grandfather.
white beard,
Right.
and he was getting too old to run the place, so his daughter Rona, my daughter, my sister, helped them out on a lot of time. Because I remember McLeod store, who owned the store before these guys bought this? Omnukes were in there, and then who was that guy before?
Gabe.
Huh? I forget what their name is. He passed away, a young guy. Anyway, I went into the store there, and whatever I bought, I wrote a check out to him. And he looked and he says, Mitchell. I says, yeah. Are you from down Pakan? He says, yeah, I live right there. And I says, geez, he says, I remember going across down here when the ferry was running. We were chasing girls across the river over there. And he says, we dropped by here, and that old guy was always sitting out in front of this house with a big white beard. And that was my grandfather, John A. Mitchell. Yeah. I always said that that's what I'm going to do. And Francis says, oh, you're crazy.
Now, did you ask? We heard yesterday, Anna Lawford.
Yeah,
We were
your
talking
dad.
to her, and she was talking about her mother having bought the Mitchell store, and we're wondering if that was before or after.
There's something in there
Okay.
about it.
Okay. I'm gonna have
I
to
don't know
reread this.
her. I don't know any of the Lawford girls, but I know one of them is Mrs. Lubbocan at St. Paul now.
Yes.
She
Yes.
owned Riverlot 9, which I owned, and she has the mineral rights. I was just telling your dad about that I wanted to buy them from her. I phoned her, and she says she wouldn't sell them. I don't know if she still has them or anything.
When did your family purchase Riverlot 7? It was originally the McGilvery lot,
Yeah.
the one part.
These became river lots when the settlers first came into the,
Yeah.
And this is why there's all these strips of land were given out. And I don't know what year it was. I don't remember names. And,
That's okay.
And dates. No way, I can't.
So what we need is to ask questions and get you onto a story.
Yeah.
Do you have stories you can tell about
We do it inside.
the
Just-
wind?
I've got all kinds of pictures, and over the years, somebody wanted some and everything. This is why I don't know if we still have them or not. But they used to have a ball team here, and a football team, I think, at one time too. I used to play ball, and we had our coach was Mr. He used to be the agriculturist here in Smoke Lake. See, that's it. Sometimes I can't remember names. But anyway, we were playing ball at north of Setna, Sprucefield.
Okay.
I think it was Sprucefield. And he gave anybody 50 cents a piece if they could make home runs. And I made 3 home runs that game, and he just about died. He paid me $1.50. That was a lot of money at that time. But I used to love playing ball.
Just the talk about being paid money reminds me. Have you heard any stories about the telegraph office keeping foxes or mink? Okay.
No, the telegraph's office was just down over here where that is closed in there,
Right.
And my uncle and aunt, Jimmy Mitchell and Aunt Evelyn used to live in there. I remember us going into there a lot of times when they were living there, but I don't remember any foxes, you say?
Foxes or mink?
That must have been before them, before
Okay.
their day. But this side of the telegraph office and where Livingston's had their reunion, we used to have a tennis court there. And I watched tennis court on TV now, and I was telling Francis the other day, boy, if we could have had a court like that, and ours was a little high in the middle, with the net, it must have been 3 or 4 inches slope, just in amongst those Caraganas that are over there. We used to play tennis in there.
What'd you make it out of?
Just an ordinary, level the ground off and everything, and I had a net. How the nets was, regular sized net. Those days you couldn't have pavement like this and everything around, Nobody. That's how we had enjoyed ourselves. Used to swim in the river. You could walk halfway across. It was that shallow, and then from the other half was deeper. Everybody used to come down and swim there. Today you're not allowed to do that. That's how things and times have changed. And I guess it's because of the river was a means of pollution. Everything was in Edmonton was thrown in, not only Edmonton, all the way down was thrown into the river. If you didn't want it, you got rid of it. I used to pick up truckloads of tires out of the river and take them to Smoke Lake Motors, where Clarence is now, where Jim Ratsoy is, Mitchel Ratsoy used to own that. I'd get $5 for some tires, 50 cents, 2 bits, whatever it was. And most of them, the good tire was, the serial number was cut out of them. You could just see a little strip cut out. Yeah.
They'd just float down the river.
Yeah, they float down and see the bend in the river. There's a big bend in the river here. Everything that comes down the river is floats to the current, takes it to the south side, and then the still water is slower water is on this side, and that's where it used to catch, and the water was shallower. And when it was clear, you could just see them in there, and I'd just go down with a pole and pick them out, or I had a boat at that time. And yeah.
Can you tell us any stories about the ferry?
The ferry that was running here is the one that we have sitting in Smoke Lake right now. But the one that was built here was built right on the bank of just as you turn this bank here it was built right here, and it went to Chandro Museum once the bridges came in. And Dad wanted to keep that ferry here because it was built right here, and Dad wasn't much of a politician. Today politics means a lot. Do you know Chandros?
Mm-hmm.
Heard of Chandros? That's who started the museum and everything down there. They were the ones that got the ferry because they had more pull than Dad did. They took the thing down there. Now that ferry was still at the museum last time I was there, and it's rotten. They had a sign on it, you can't walk on it. Where ours here, we tried to preserve it. We put quite a bit of money into it, and we didn't have the money as we should have. I wanted to have a cover over it, at least a roof, to keep the rain off at least. Because if you ever seen the inside of a ferry, you wouldn't believe that it rotted that fast. Because there's crisscross sills like this all the way down through underneath there. And they were all rotten, even though they were treated, pressure treated and everything. You just touch them and they'd fall apart. Yeah. Yes, I remember I used to help on the ferry here a lot when the water was high. And then when it was too low, you'd have to push across because the ferry was up here by our place at one time, right opposite the gas well.
Okay.
And I don't know why they moved it down here, because that hill, the old grade, is still up there. And I guess those horse and buggy days, there was very few vehicles, I guess. That's why they moved it down here. And then those hills up there were all built like that. And because I remember my dad wouldn't let me drive his vehicle. The guy, Ed Alberson, used to run the ferry here for 14 years. Their daughters were here just the other day to this dude. And he taught me how to drive a vehicle. And there's another guy from across the river over there, from Guards where they lived, Edmund Gurney's name, and he had a big Buick car, and I used to use his Buick all the time. He'd let me use it, and we used to go to barn dances up there where the natives bought that land.
The Cromarty land?
Yeah.
Okay.
Used to go to dances up there. And there was one evening I came home, and it was too late to take the car back, so I thought I'll take it back in the morning. I got up in the morning, the water was up just unbelievable, and timbers floating like heck. Anyway, I went down to the ferry, and they said, well, I'll take you across, but because they just live on top of the hill over there, you can't see the place, but there was a path, shortcut we just cut it down to. But take it up there and hurry and come back. So I did. I come back right away. I run down that hill, and when I got there, there was the ferry was just loaded with timbers. And it took 3 of us trying to crank that thing. you crank it and it turns like this. They let that logs off and couldn't get it off, and I remember Dad came running down the hill, turn that ferry up because that cable's going to break. It would stretch like this and then it would give a little bit. Funny it didn't break out. Anyway, we got out into the middle of the river, and then just enough that the current took that same. I bet you there was 100 loads of wood went out from underneath that ferry. The ferry just lifted up like that, just like take a big, deep sigh of relief. It was unbelievable. And then when the water was low, you couldn't. We had to push the doggone thing over, and we used to help them a lot of times. And then there was a big rocks out in there, and we'd put a car on this end to keep the ferry like this until it got up to the where the rocks are. Then you'd drive the car to the other side to lift it up so it would go over the top of the rocks. Until finally, I and I think one of my brothers was there, and Harvey Mitchel, my cousin, they used to live down here at the telegraph office. We used to go in there, and they'd pay us to go and move all those rocks off. The water was shallow, maybe 3 feet, that was all, not if that. We used to move all those rocks, just get down there with a bar and the biggest ones and everything, move them, keep moving them down off the line, the traffic sign there, routes. Yeah, those days are gone. I was just telling your dad now, there's talk of building a dam on this river. I never heard of it, but I heard from 2 different people this summer. And if that was the case, we'll get that riverboat from Edmonton. You'll be maybe, I don't know how many years that's going to be, but if you're still around, you'll be a witness to this, that you'll be as an interpreter here, but that riverboat coming back to Fort Victoria. We'll see if it happens. I might not be around, but you just keep that in mind. And remember this, and I told you this in such a day.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 years or something.
What were the barn parties like at Cromarty's?
Did you ever go to these old country barn dances? Some of them were pretty rough, and others were good.
There'd be local people playing instruments?
Well, not really. They had bands from all over the place. And some local bands, yeah. Vaudeville shows. Used to travel all over the country at those times, you know. They'd get them there. And I even remember, I shouldn't say this because I remember I sold moonshine there. Not on my own, but for another guy that always used to make it. And they thought, oh, nobody will ever expect me to be doing a thing like that. Now I used to sell it for 2 bits a bottle.
Was there a cost to going to the
Yep.
dances?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But I don't remember how much it was.
It's okay.
Not a heck of a lot that I can remember. But that old barn was stood there, and it was built right over the riverbank.
Is that the barn that's still there?
No, they tore it down.
Okay.
That red one is there, but this one, the red one's there too, but this one is just down a little lower, and it was built over a big long barn built right over the riverbank. And there was a door entrance from the back too, stairs in the back. And you'd go out on that platform, and the moon would be shining and the reflection on the river. Gee, that was just beautiful to see that. And then he had a lot of cattle at the time, and the cows were all downstairs. You could hear them bellowing around there when the dance was going on.
And in the front of your place here, there was a flour mill and a sawmill.
Just over the hill here, yeah.
Just over the hill.
Yeah. The flour mill, all I remember, like I was saying, all I can remember is the old boiler. Everything else was, finally it was picked up for metal. But the flour mill there, I don't remember the flour mill other than the logs. The logs were piled all the way from that row of trees right in front, and just as our driveway here, they just left a driveway for us. And from there right down on to right to the mill.
To the sawmill.
Thousands of logs.
Too windy.